the field. From the ice to the turf, we'll break it down. Discussing every win and every loss in town. We'll talk about the Canucks and the Lions. We are your irrational fans. We are your irrational fans.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live for episode 90. What episode is this? 97 of the Hughes Sports Podcast. I'm your host, of course, Jake Hughes, normally alongside the old man. However, he is on vacation. Instead, this week, I am joined by Super Fan Reid Jackson. Reid, how are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Nice to be back again.
This time with the actual host of the show and not just the old man.
Yeah. We nice to be able to do it with you for the first time, and we both just watched the game here tonight, and not the best game to really talk about, but definitely exciting at the end there.
We talked in the second intermission, and we said, hey, just make the game exciting. And Hughes did that with 40 odd seconds into the third period, scoring. Patterson scoring in about a minute and a half to go, and still lose by a score of 5-4 against a rough-looking Pittsburgh Penguins, but had the number of Artur Shilovs tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately, Seeloff's just hasn't been able to really find that confidence in his groove this year when he's been called. Again, Canucks give up the first goal of the game. Last year, it was kind of their staple. They were, scoring first all the time, starting out with the lead, and a lot of times they were scoring on their first shot of the game. But Seeloff's again, first shot goal. He kind of struggled right there. He wasn't kind of aware and should have been able to stop that first one. And then, gives up three goals in 4 minutes. Or what was it? 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
It was
pretty deflating.
440 something.
Yeah, I think it was 448 there. They scored 3 goals in 448 there.
Yeah, which is
at the end of the first.
Yeah. And the end of the first, I mean, it felt like Pittsburgh had control of the game all the way through that first period. And the power play goal and the Rickard Rakell goal, I don't blame Shilovs for it. Those were right across the crease, impossible for him to get. There was a couple defensive mistakes. Juleson was kind of watching one of them. Myers,
power play.
Yeah, Myers decided to go for a skate at one point and just kind of, or was it Myers or was it?
It was Carson Soucy again, who such a solid player last year. This year, like he's not confident, and he was chasing his guy. He chased him out to the blue line, and then tried to hustle back. But basically, him and Myers Juleson, were at the top of the crease and kind of tipped it over to Rakell, and he's sitting there by himself. He's not going to miss that.
No. Those two I really don't blame on Shilovs. The Brian Russ goal, however, right at the end of the
start of the second.
Was that this one? Yeah, the second.
Yeah.
Russ goal, the start of the second.
Make it 5-1.
Made it 5-1, and there was we talked about it the second intermission. You messaged me at the start of the third period because initially you said defense wasn't looking too well, kind of all over the place on the ice, and you said actually it was just a really good play. You want to walk us through that?
Yeah, when I first saw it live, I saw the pass come to Rust, and basically you had Myers was on the right side, closer to the boards, and Brandstrom was on the left side, again, closer to the board. So Rust was in the middle with nobody to impede him. So I was curious as to why the coverage was so poor. But right at the start of the third there, they showed the replay of the goal, and basically Crosby had the puck on the far side and then went all the way back to the other side and then to Rust. So that's the reason for the defense being so open, was just the passing. So it was a nice play by Pittsburgh to put him in a scoring position. But where he shot it from, Silas has to come up with that one, especially with the Canucks down 4-1. Like, you look at last night's game and the Canucks weren't great. You know, you had Boston, they doubled them in shots, but Lankinen was there. He made saves he shouldn't have. He kept them in the game, and the Canucks come out and win. Tonight, you need Silas to make a save there. And once you're down 5-1, it was just, too much for them to overcome.
Well, and that really seems to be the story for the Canucks this year, is either they look really well, at like really good, things are clicking, and goaltending is solid enough to get them through the game. Or you have these games where, like last night, Lankinen kind of stole the game for the Canucks and they do just enough to win. And
Yeah.
I don't think I don't blame Seelovs, but he hasn't been able to provide what he provided last playoffs for the Canucks.
No, he was, I think he didn't overthink anything. The pressure was on. It was just, he was able to make the saves. We talked about that with the old man there last year. He still had a sub 900 save percentage, but he was making the big saves that he needed at the right times. And this is where he hasn't been able to do so this year, has come up with that big save when it's needed. But I do look, I was thinking about it in the third period as Pittsburgh, had a few more chances, and Silovs had settled in. Sadly, it's 5-1 when he settles in, but he did look good after that, basically the last 28 minutes of the game, right? 38 minutes. It was just that first few minutes of the second period, but after that, he didn't let anything in. So, just took too long.
Well, and is it a case that, because I've never played goalie, you have the pad set behind you. Obviously, you've played a little bit of goalie. Do you think it's purely just a mindset thing where he's thinking the game too much and not letting it come to him?
It can be, right? Like, you look at guys you look at Thatcher Demko, right? He's just so positionally sound. The great goalies, they don't move a lot. They don't have to. They're just set right. Where when you're starting to scramble or you're not confident in your positioning, you're going to get beat. And especially you look at Silovs, he has, he's been prone to let in goals from far out. You saw it in the first game of the year against Calgary. You've seen it last year against Edmonton. Like, those are to me where he's just not confident in his positioning, or he's not aware of his positioning as well as he should be. I play goalie. I'm no expert, but if you're in the right position, the puck hits you. You look at the best goalies in the league, and they're not scrambling.
Well, and again, I don't blame Tocchet for this at all, but the original idea with Demko being out, bringing in Lankinen, was that you'd have Silovs and Lankinen kind of playing 1A, 1B until Demko came back. And Lankinen kind of took over that and has been relied upon quite heavily, playing basically a full starter schedule. With Demko being, cross our fingers, as close as he's been to being back, when Demko comes back, is it as simple as Silovs goes down and gets a whole bunch of starter reps in Abbotsford? Or is it something, because we've heard rumors that the agent and player really came to Alvin and Rutherford and said, no, like, Silovs is an NHL goaltender?
Well, if you look at his save percentage, the numbers are screaming that he's not an NHL goaltender right now. The Canucks told Silovs, and, they didn't sign Casey DeSmith because of what Silovs did in the playoffs last year. He showed what he is capable of. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to do it this year. They also gave him game 1 at home to start the year because they wanted him to be 1A. And they said, okay, we're going to bring in Lankinen because they didn't know when Demko would be back. And they thought, okay, we're going to have to run 3 goalies because we owe it to Lankinen for bringing him in. But
Yeah.
what's happened is you have Seeloff's, what is he, 3-year-old goalie? He's waiver exempt. You got to send him down, and he's going to get his confidence back, and you play him. And you play him like a workhorse down there. And that's how he's going to get the experience and the confidence back to be an NHL goaltender. So,
Well, they did try that when they brought up Ty Young for the day and sent Seelovs down to be able to get him that start. There was that stretch where he hadn't played in like, I think, almost 2 weeks. They got him down to that AHL, and he got a win. Looked very confident and comfortable in that win, but then just doesn't translate to the NHL. And I mean, it really shows how big that gap is between the AHL and the NHL at
yeah,
that level.
absolutely. And when he did come back, you have to give him credit. He did have, a few really good games in a row where they did have that confidence to put him in when needed. But Kevin Lankinen has been maybe the Canucks MVP this year to date, just for what he's been able to do. Look at his road record. The Canucks now are 8-2 on the road, and he's 8-0.
Yeah.
He's been a workhorse, and he's been clearly the better goaltender. But now you got Demko. When he's ready to come back here, to me, he's easily a top 5 goaltender in the NHL. He was a Vezina candidate last year. And if he didn't get hurt at the end of the year, I think he really would have had a chance to win it. You're going to bring him back, and I think they're going to, be more aware of his load. But he's going to be the workhorse. You're going to have Kevin Lankinen, backing up, and he's going to play a fair amount of games. But Demko is going to be the A goalie. There's no question about it. He makes the Canucks better. He's a star on the team. And, you look at where the Canucks are at right now, and we've had no starting goaltender in Demko. We haven't had Hughes, Besser, Pedersen, and Miller all in and playing, the way they can yet this year at all. I don't think we've seen one game like that. So to be where they are and knowing what they have in the chamber here, I think, there's a lot of positives, and I think the back half of the season is going to be great for the Canucks.
Well, and we had talked about just before we went live. I mean, we're talking where it's like disappointing results, not like whether it's fans, media, everyone has been like the Canucks have great standards, especially based off of last year to live up to. They still third in the Pacific, quite comfortably in a playoff spot in the West. Would I love for them to finish first and not have to play on the road or potentially have to play Edmonton or Vegas? Yes. But this team is built for a playoff run. Like Alvin and Rutherford really took, in my opinion, took the team and said, okay, we've got a great team that can get things done, and started adding the pieces that are needed to be a deep run team. Now, obviously, lots of rumors out there that the Canucks are looking for another top 4 defenseman. Tyler Myers has been playing consistently third line or third pairing or third defenseman minutes, I would say this year, but for the last 3 years. And I think we've seen it when he's able to play less minutes. He looks a little bit better. He doesn't make those mistakes that we look at quite often. Is there any rumors that you've seen out there that really intrigue you for a defenseman?
There's lots. I would love to see the Canucks somehow be able to get David Jurasek out of Columbus, but that's going to be a hard trade to make because I wouldn't want to give up Lecker-Mackey or Tom Willander to do so. But either way, I think if we're going to bring in a defender that's going to help the Canucks down the stretch, I think we're looking at moving our first round pick again. I'm all for that. I believe, draft picks are a lottery. When you're not a good team, you want to collect them. But when you're a team that's challenging and trying to win a Stanley Cup, they're not important. I should retract that. They're very important, but they're an important asset to use to make your team better. If you're waiting 3 years for a player to come in, your window can be long gone. So I think you look out there, right-handed defenseman is something we need. I'd rather that than go after a guy like Marcus Pettersson, who we saw tonight for Pittsburgh. Because I think Brandstrom's shown well. So, you could have a left side of Hughes, Brandstrom, and Carson Soucy down in lower minutes on the left side. But you need somebody with Hronek and Myers. And if we can drop Myers down to the third pair, like you just said, with those reduced minutes, I think that we'd see that pair of Soucy and Myers be a lot fresher and help the team a lot more. But
I think a big thing with them is they're just not consistent enough to be playing where they were. And last year, like, we saw how great they could be, and everyone always remembers those. But through the playoffs, there were a lot of question marks. And if you're looking at the stats, they were paired up, especially in the second round. They're paired up against the McDavid Draisaitl line, but they didn't look promising. And just to be able to come back and run it back, it was the one thing that really I questioned from Alvin and Rutherford.
Yeah, they brought in Forbort, who we haven't seen much of. But again, he's a left side defenseman, right? So, and Desharnais, he's been as advertised before. There's moments where you love him with his big, his long stick and what he can do in the penalty kill, but he throws grenades out there, and he's not reliable. He can't move the puck well enough. And Juleson, again, he has moments where, he's fearless. He'll block shots, good on the penalty kill, but his decision-making is it's just a second behind. And you saw it again tonight where he's watching the play instead of clearing that puck. Like, he should be anticipating that and getting his body in there and moving that puck out to help Shilovs, because that, those few plays, like it was again, on that second goal with Raquel, he kind of tipped the puck there, but they're lost out there is what it seems. And you need steady D, and we need to be able to basically, shore that up, but it's easier said than done for sure.
Yeah. And of course we're out here being like, oh, just find a top four right shot defenseman. Like, there's not 12 other teams trying to do the same thing. I mean,
there's probably 30 of 32 that are trying to do that right now.
Well, and you've got the benefit of Columbus sitting there being like, no, that's not good enough. That, like, you always see Rutherford led teams try to set the market on these trades. And Juracek, I think, is a very unique situation, just because he is so young, has the pedigree, and can plug and play in almost any lineup and be a top four defenseman. But if you get stuck with a market that prices you out early, that could be a problem, because again, you don't want to look at Lekermacki, Willander, even EPD. I don't think you're going to want to look at it as a trade.
No.
Those are assets you want to hold on to, because that's your next batch to be able to keep you in as a playoff team, right?
Yeah. I think Hoaglander's a name that was going to get shopped here. He's just not fitting into the system with Tocchet, and you've seen it with basically here Sprong and drawing a blank here, Kuznetsov, or Kuzmenko. Sorry,
Kuzmenko.
Just if you can't do it at both ends of the rink, you're not going to get ice time with Tocchet, and he's kind of played himself out, I think. But they just signed him to a 3-year extension at a really good number, so I think that helps his trade value, where somebody's going to get him at a low rate for 3 years, and that might be able to help. But him alone for a defenseman is not gonna be enough for a team. So I think we're gonna be packaging him with another pick potentially to upgrade there.
Yeah, and I mean, when the season started, I personally had my sights on Rasmus Andersson from the Flames.
Yeah.
as that guy who brings that physicality. He's got the ability, got the touch to be able to play offensively. Can definitely step into the Canucks and play top 4 defensive minutes. But the Flames are doing better than the Canucks are so far this year.
Yeah,
Points
I
percentage
I
wise
don't
over straight points. It's wild.
yeah, I don't see him as a player that's going to actually be available now. The Flames have played really well, and he's such a big part of their team.
Yeah.
And he's still signed for another year, so I think that they're probably going to hold on to him unless they get a deal they just can't refuse.
Or
Um,
if the wheels fall apart. I mean, trade
yeah,
deadline's not till March. We're at the end of November here. Crazier things have happened to teams where one injury, like if Wolf goes down with an injury, or I mean, really on the Flames, it really feels like next man up with that organization. But really, if Wolf or Vladar go down with an injury, that could very well signal a tailspin, right?
yeah, yeah. Anything can happen. It's you know, things can change quickly for sure, and people are going to become available that we're not even talking about right now. Um, but one thing too, you just said about next man up, and talking about just Alvin and Rutherford and what they've done. Amazing to see all these players that the Canucks have brought up from the AHL that have done well. Max Sassons with 2 points in 2 games now. You saw Ratu again with his second goal of the year. We've had Baines. Brandstrom was down there to start the year. These guys, what they've done with Abbotsford and being able to develop the players down there, it's great to see the depth, especially at forward. Um, it'll be nice once we don't need that depth every day, but it's good to know come playoff time, if we have injuries, we have quite a few guys that we can choose from to plug in, and maybe also use some guys as trade bait just because they've shown well.
Well, and to be able to add that little sweetener that, like we said, there's going to be 30 teams looking for a right shot defenseman. Having that Sasson who has 4 or 5 games of NHL experience and looks like he could fit in could be the difference in making that trade and getting outbid.
Yeah.
Something else that I've really loved what this management team has done with Abbotsford is the shuttling of players up and down on stretches where we can. I've tried to explain it. We've had conversations about it in text. Can you give everyone on the internet a quick understanding of why the shuttling matters for cap purposes?
Okay. Well, the cap is told daily, right? So basically, when you have like tonight, they have 22 players, right? Unfortunately, they don't have the cap space to use right now with Miller on leave because he's still on the active cap for the team, but he's just a non-active roster. But basically, so for every day that the Canucks have less guys on the cap, they're accumulating total dollars that they can use at the trade deadline. I can't think offhand right now what the formula was exactly for it, but basically, I think if you have, well, I can't even remember. I apologize, but
No,
it's quite complicated.
it's one of those things that I love to applaud the management team for doing it. And then
Yes.
someone's like, how does it work? I'm like, it's very complicated because cap, the way I understand it, so correct me if I'm wrong, is cap is based off of an 82 game season, but
Yes.
it's paid out daily based off of your roster. So basically they take your 82 games, which is, I think, what are we at for the cap? 90 million?
88.
88 million. So basically takes 88 million divided by the amount of days in the actual regular season. And for every day that you're under the cap, you get extra money added on because that cap savings moves into how much more cap you have for every existing day.
Yes.
Again, layman terms of explaining it, but the fact that earlier this year, especially when we were on that long homestand, that the Canucks were able to do that with players, putting them through waivers and being able to accrue that extra cap space and allowing for more potential for trades. Doesn't mean they're going to use it, but it allows you to at least have those conversations and be in the conversation when it comes to trade deadline season.
Yeah. So basically, at the time of the trade deadline, if you have a player that's worth, 5 million on the cap, and you've accrued space, you can fit that player in because their actual cap space is going to be down to about like 2 million. It's prorated how everything works. So if they've created that extra space, that they can use that. But right now they're struggling right now because they have anybody that's on injured reserve, their money is still on the cap. So it's not until you go into long-term injury reserve that you can pull somebody off the cap, and then you're never accruing new or more cap space. So right now you have JT Miller's 8 million that's on the books and he's not playing. You have Thatcher Demko's 5 million. You have Forbort's 1.5. Like as soon as we get these players in, we can now take off the extra cap from guys that we're going to send down to the minors. So we're going to start accruing a lot more daily cap space once those guys have been sent back down. Because we have an active roster of 23. Today we used 22 active roster players. But once we get those other 3-4 players back into the lineup, we're now basically getting rid of those players that are going to go back to the AHL, and we're going to start collecting that extra space. And that's why when they were having days with no practices, that they were sending down guys that are waiver exempt because they were able to collect their full salary for the day to accrue into that daily toll.
Well, and big thing, like something I've noticed a lot is that like not just fans, but also other media pundits are talking about it as, well, it's just a paper transaction. This is a legitimate transaction. Like papering down right at the trade deadline means that you assign them basically as paper. They don't need to report to Abbotsford. And that just allows them to be available during a playoff run for Abbotsford.
Yeah.
This is a legitimate, they're going to Abbotsford and technically need to check in with whatever the Abbotsford is doing. So like there was one day where I know Ratu was sent down and actually showed up in Abbotsford to practice because they were doing a practice, and he said, I might as well get the skate in.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a physical transaction, and the guys up figuring out the exact math on this daily accrual. I hope that they're getting paid good money, because it would be staring at a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of numbers to make everything work perfectly. Like there's so many moving pieces to something like this.
Yeah. Like you look back, to 2011 era, they had, Mike Gillis and Lawrence Gilman, and Gilman's job was the cap.
Yeah.
So basically he just figured out how to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And that was his main job. I'm not sure who does it for the Canucks right now. But it's a vital thing. And this is the first year that the Canucks have actually been able to take advantage of having Abbotsford as their farm team. Because when they were in LTIR, it really didn't make a difference if they were right there or not, because they weren't able to do the shuttling of back and forth, because you can't accrue anything when you're in long-term injury reserve. So that was such a important thing for the organization this year to get back under LTIR. And then you look at that move that they made. So we traded Tucker Poolman and his contract that would have put us into LTIR, and we were able to get Brandstrom. They waived him right away, and they brought him up, and he's shown that he belongs here. So what a move that was. It was basically done as just, to get out of LTIR, and they took a player back, but it's turned out to be quite the steal because he's proven to be probably their third best defenseman. And, we got him for a 4th round pick and getting out of the cap. So,
well, it was wild to me because it was the and we'll never know for certain until someone from the trade talks about it, if they ever do. But it was always talked about as like, oh, Branson was literally a throw-in to make the roster numbers work.
yes.
Right? For them to do that and then, again, wave him to the A, realize he's way too good for the A, and is, again, the third best defenseman on the team, and allows you to make the accrual and stay out of LTIR. That's just a move that if any other GM makes, I think there's a lot more media noise around it, but the Canucks have so many different stories going on that I think that one's going to be one of those things that the fans will remember, but I don't think it's going to be talked about as much as it probably should.
Yeah, you know what? It reminds me of is a deal Mike Gillis made when we acquired from San Jose there. Oh, we traded Patrick White, and I don't know why I can't think of his name, the German defenseman. But was just such a vital piece for the Canucks. Oh man, how can I not think of his name? Ehrhoff, yes. Yeah, steal a player and then become such a vital part of the team. Brandstrom is not Ehrhoff yet. But what I really like about Brandstrom is, he's always had the pedigree of an offensive defenseman. He was drafted 15th overall. He's shown in Ottawa what he can do, moving the puck. But this year, if you look, like, especially last night, again, his blocks, his defensive effort, he's really coming along in that sense. And that's what's shown Tocchet and Foote that he can be, somebody they can rely on, because he's, to me, been playing better defense than Soucy and Myers. And then you add the offensive input he has, not just the tallying points, but the puck moving and the decision making with the puck, and just he creates space for his D partner and for forwards, just with his agility and smart. So really happy with Brandstrom.
Well, and just the way he reads the play, he feels like, and it's not that I'm comparing him directly to Quinn Hughes, but he feels like a Quinn Hughes light.
Yes.
He's the player. It's like, oh, perfect. Like he's a young kid who's got, I mean, he's signed to a 1 year, $900,000 salary. You're getting something that most teams would probably be willing to pay $1.5 million, $2 million for, and consider that a great deal. And again, we got him as a throw-in on a deal to help us. It's fantastic, and every game he plays, it just feels like he's getting more and more comfortable with the systems. When he first came up, I felt there was a few I wouldn't say mistakes, but few times where he was just kind of all over the place, trying to do too much. And now it feels like he's finally getting it. He's able to let the game come to him.
I think that's has a lot to do with the coaching as well, right? Just learning the structure. Like, we talk about structure, but that's one of the areas the Canucks, I think they just haven't been able to play with the same structure they did last year. But it's still there. It's still taught. It's still, a staple of the Canucks. So, him learning this from Tocchet and Foote and Gonchar and guys like this, he's getting that coaching and understanding where to be and what to do and when to do things or not to do things. And he's really absorbing that information and showing it on the ice. Some guys, they just aren't able to absorb that information and utilize it in a game. Like, you look at Desharnais and guys like that just haven't been able to to be sound defensively. Really, I think that they panic a little bit too much under the pressure and the speed in the NHL, and they're just not everyday players.
Well, and what do you do with someone with Desharnais? Like you sign him to a 2-year, $2 million per season deal. What do you do with him at this point? Like, he's not playing.
Well, he's hurt right now, so I think he's been better than Juleson, to be honest.
Fair.
I think the last few games that he played, he was looking better, but he's just, he's going to be that player that you love some parts of his game, and there's parts that you just, they're going to look like he's, a seventh defenseman. But he's going to continue to be worked on, and hopefully he can get better. But I think, you look at the Canucks management, and they're seeing the same things we are. They're not satisfied, and they're going to go out and they're going to do what they can to improve the team. And they're not too worried about the fact that they have him for 2 years. I think they're just going to, they've been an organization. And also, Rutherford, in his time in Pittsburgh and elsewhere, they're not afraid to admit when they made a mistake, and they just move on from the player. And not to maybe we're getting too far ahead of ourselves on Desharnais. Like, he's a good seventh defenseman. But I just don't think that he's going to be a player that the Canucks can rely on and have in their lineup in the playoffs if they want to go far.
Well, and especially if, we're talking, and it's not just us, it's everyone in the media land they're looking to bring in another defenseman, right? You get Forbort back, you get Desharnais back, and you bring in another defenseman. Someone on the defensive end has got to move. I don't think there's any way you're keeping 8 defensemen on the roster.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to put somebody on waivers if they bring somebody in, or they're going to be a player that goes back in the trade. But you need depth, right? Like, that's the thing.
And that's a problem. We saw it last year. You need to make sure you have depth in the playoffs because injuries are going to happen.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the team. Brian had an idea and I lost it completely.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Elias Pettersson. He's now up to 17 points, or was it 19 points as of today?
I'll pull it up.
I think
here.
17. I think he has 17 points in 21 games, but he's had 13 points in the last 11 games, and he's showing us, what we want to see. I think he's still not being the full game breaker that he can be, but he's definitely turned the corner. And I think people can relax a little bit now with him.
Yeah. 17 points, 21 games, clearly not on pace to match 23-24 or 22-23. But if he keeps up at the pace he's playing at right now, obviously he's going to match or break those levels. I think the big thing with Petey is the chemistry he's found with Sherwood and DeBrusk. Clearly is working. Even with Brock Besser coming back, Rick Tocchet didn't want to separate that line. You let that line run until something happens, whether it's you need to break them apart because they're not scoring. Even in tonight's game, I don't think they looked bad on the ice. I think Petey, I think over the last 2 years, he's really shown that he's able to take those hard hits, the physicality of the game that a lot of people questioned earlier on in his career and always question with European players, especially Swedish players, which makes no sense to me. But he's that stretch there right before things started to click. He started throwing that reverse hit and I can't remember what game it was or which player it was on, but there was one where the guy came in and Petey just dropped the shoulder and reversed into him and took him clean out. And I was like, oh, Petey's getting himself back into the game. I don't know if it's, again, I don't know if it's that the tendonitis, if it was something mental, combination thereof. He's figured it back out. I'm willing to say that I don't think there should be any panic
No.
from Canucks fans. I understood why there was panic from Canucks fans. And I remember where I was going to go before you asked me that question, because it actually ties into this question. I've seen a relentless number of Twitter, X, whatever it is you want to call it, posts and insiders talking about how there's a rift between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any truth to that.
Even if there is, you don't have to love the person you're playing with. As like, you don't need to be best friends as long as you're willing to work together with them.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, they've been doing it perfectly fine for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think that they've done fine together. You know, look at where they both are, what they've done. They both had 100-point seasons. They're huge parts of the team. They both want to win. They're very, very passionate. They're hard on themselves. They they want to win. They're competitive people. You're gonna get into it, but like everything's rumors, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's got rumors about everything. I don't think we've ever seen any evidence of it. In practice, guys get at each other, right? Like,
Yeah.
look at Garland and Joshua at the beginning of last year, and they're great friends, right? It's just competitive juices. And that's what happens. Like, you need that. Great teams have competitive players, and in practice they work hard and they're going to go like, you know, guys go over the top, you're going to get a slash or you're going to get a hit, and guys are going to get mad. That's just the competitive way, and I think it's healthy. Um there's lots of stuff with JT Miller. I haven't really read into any types of rumors and stuff on that because I just not into reading that kind of stuff,
Same.
it's all speculation. So, you know, it can go any which way, but I just hope that JT gets right and is ready to come back and be a leader on the team. He's had ups and downs in the fan base over his time here, but I think you look at JT Miller right now, and already I think he may be, one of the better Canucks of all time. He's close to top 10 in points now, and he's a heart and soul guy. And you look at how he's received in Rogers Arena with the JT Miller chants. He's loved by the Vancouver fan base, and deservedly so. And I think Petey as well. Petey's, he's a little bit quieter. He doesn't like to talk a lot to the media, but you have players that just aren't into that.
Yeah.
But I think both of them are unbelievable hockey players. We're very lucky to have them in this market, and I'm confident in their abilities, and I think they're gonna play very well down the stretch for the Canucks.
Yeah. I just want to bring it up because, of course, people are talking about it, and it's one of those things to me that's just people bored on the internet. And now that this game has happened, there'll be tons of talk about this game, and hopefully those rumors will move on.
Yeah,
Because give Miller his time and space. He will be back when he is ready. And if he wants to talk about it when he's back, cool. Then we'll talk about it. But why he had to take the leave. Until then, get better, JT.
yeah, 100%.
What are
Tonight,
your go
oh,
ahead.
I was
Nope.
going to say, so Hughes Suter scored his 7th of the year tonight. The Canucks had 7 players with 6 goals through 20 games before tonight. So that's 7 players that were on pace for 24 goals or more this year. Unbelievable. The spread of the scoring. Nobody's taken the run with it, but and Hughes tonight scored his 5th, so he's right in there too. I can't think of a Canucks team that's had that many players scoring like this.
Well, and we talked about it coming into the season. Like everyone was talking about it, where it's like, yeah, the Canucks depth, that's going to be their strength. Don't get me wrong. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, those are going to be the guys that carry the load, but scoring is going to come from all four lines. And it's been like, no, that's coming from everyone. Like it's nice to see that there's actually depth that's working. For so many years, we've been relying on the Lotto line and Hughes to really keep us in games and score the goals. But to see guys like Suter, like Sherwood, Dakota Joshua, Garland, these guys who are becoming, I wouldn't say superstars, but becoming solid NHL players that people are gonna, if they move on from the Canucks or when they move on from the Canucks, fans are going to be upset about it, which is good. That's a good thing to have in an organization. We don't have the Louis Ericksons and Brandon Sutters anymore. We've got depth, and depth that is fantastic for us.
Yeah, like in my head many times I've tried to put together the full lineup, but if you have this line of Pedersen, Sherwood, and DeBrusk running, and then you have the Dakota Joshua, Garland, and Suter line, and then we get Miller back, and we have Miller and Besser. Then you can plug anybody in there with them. Puce Suter, I really like with Garland and Joshua, but you can put somebody else up there, or maybe Lekkermaki's up again soon, and you have that other scoring threat. It's exciting to see that the Canucks have the ability to put together solid lines, and then you have the fourth line. They're all good players, so
there's that peskiness to this team that I haven't seen a Canucks team have for years, over a decade now. I'm thinking back to probably the 2011 team, where you had Burrows, you had Lap, you had all these players who players hated to play against,
yeah.
but could still score. You had the Kiefer Sherwood type players who you would, as an opposing team, you would get under your skin. Then as soon as you go to take that shot on him, he sneaks past you and is able to slap one past or set up a great play.
Yeah, like you can run out lines where JT Miller is no fun to play against.
Yeah.
And then you have Kiefer Sherwood, who he's look at what he's doing with the hits. Like he is a pain to play against. And then you have Connor Garland. Nobody likes playing against Connor Garland either. I remember that clip of Nathan McKinnon throwing his helmet at him.
Yeah.
He's just somebody that gets under your skin. And Dakota Joshua and Ratu can be nasty too, right?
Yep.
So I really like that they have that, because you can look at the team and they may not be firing right now, but what they have is the intangibles in a playoff run that are going to help you, right? In a lower scoring game, are you going to be able to create turnovers? Are you going to be able to put fear into the defenseman? Like if a defenseman's worrying about getting drilled in the corner, he's going to start to make rush plays and cough pucks up. And that's so important in playoff hockey that it's nice to see that we have those types of players that are going to be difficult to play against and that are going to help them there. And it's been since that era, where you had guys that you could put out on the ice every shift that are going to be causing that fear, or just, you have to look over your shoulder because somebody's coming. It's exciting. I know it's been a weird year. They are doing well, but they haven't looked great. They haven't looked great for any stretch of time. It's been good game and then terrible game, like just defensive lapses. I haven't had a chance here to listen to Talkett, what he thinks of the game tonight, but again, slow starts and poor coverage and the compete level, they weren't winning battles. And then you go and you look at last night and just that they're it's a different game. They weren't producing a ton of shots last night, but they played solid defensively. they were playing difficult. They just have to get that consistency and the players back, and I think that they're a really good team.
And the big thing is like the expectations are high, but I don't think they're out of reach for this team. Once this team figures out how to show up on time and gets all the pieces back in play working together, like I'm thinking, like if we keep up where we're at, we're 598, 610 win percentage or point percentage all the way through to Christmas time. After Christmas time, if we can get things clicking, that's easily going to be a team that's going to be fighting for the top of the Pacific.
Yeah, I think they have a real shot at winning the division. Right now if you look at points percentage, they're right there with every team. So all it's going to take is a stretch of games where they play like they can. When and hopefully, soon we get JT Miller back and Demko back, we're going to be a stronger team we're adding 2 superstar players, 2 NHL All-Stars to the lineup. It makes a massive difference. And just even, Demko, I mean, Lankinen's been great, but you put Demko in net, and what does it do for the whole team?
Yeah.
The whole team, there's a little bit of weight off their shoulders. They're a little bit more confident in their play because they have the feeling that if we do make a mistake, Demko's there, right?
Yeah.
Where tonight, the Canucks cough up a puck. What are they thinking?
They're-
We cannot let them shoot because they might score.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not the way to play.
And even with Demko back in a game like this, where you're playing back to back, it's, we have Lankinen back there. We don't need to change how we play. We can keep playing the same way. And we know we've got a star goalie who's going to get us those victories or can steal us those games.
Yeah. Like it's going to be an interesting, we're on the road right now. We're 2-1 now on the road trip. We've got 3 more games here. Going into the road trip, how the Canucks played at home, if the thought was in the market, if the Canucks can come out with a 50-50, NHL 500 on the road trip, it's a successful trip, right? Yeah. But we're going in and we're playing Buffalo, we're playing Detroit. Those are teams that are struggling as well. So the Canucks, if they can find the way to get back, after a game like tonight, they're probably going to be ready to go. They don't want to be embarrassed again. So hopefully we can come out, with maybe 2 of the next 3 games, and then we're going to be in a good position coming home here.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see, again, so many moving pieces with this team, and we're not even close to seeing the full potential of it. And that's, as a fan, super exciting to me because they might not always be the most exciting games, but there's always a chance that they can come back. And they proved it tonight. They with a minute and a half left, it was a 1-goal game. Anything's possible.
Yeah, that's what they were last year, right? You could never count them out. And they more times than not, they found their way back and won games like tonight. They haven't done that this year. But it's there. It's right there, and I think that it's not far off from where we're going to see more consistent effort, and they're going to start to roll here. Again, the next 2 games, early games, weird times for hockey players. What is it?
Weird time for hockey fans.
Yes,
because the
1 o'clock Friday,
noon Pacific Friday, because of American Thanksgiving, so a Canadian team is playing at 1 p.m. Which means work is going to have to understand that I'm going to be distracted for 3 hours during the workday. And then Sunday at, what is it, 9:30 or 9 a.m.?
9:30 Pacific, yeah. So again, we had talked kind of before the show here about comments made by Alvin that Demko, he could be a game time decision here in the next anytime here. And we talked, was Silov's game tonight his last start? I think it might be his last start. But as I said, I'm not too sure we'd see Demko either Friday or Sunday. Just his first game back, goalies, you know, the habits and the routine, um, to then come in and start a game, early in the morning. I just don't see it as a fit for him to have his first game to come in where he's just can't be in a normal game routine.
Well,
So
and then the next game after that would be the last game of this road trip against the Wild,
yes,
which is still technically an earlier start time, but nothing too crazy. It's 5 p.m. Pacific time,
yeah,
which is still a normal start time in Minnesota.
yeah. So I would say that if he's gonna start on this road trip, that I would circle that game as maybe the one we see him.
It also wouldn't surprise me if they wait until that first game back in Vancouver,
Yeah.
because, I mean, look, you haven't put up a really great product on home ice. Be nice to be able to give fans that boost, that energy boost, give the team that energy boost with the fans, with Demko there. Plus, then you also have your medical staff, your medical rooms, and everything, because we don't know what that Popliteus is going to look like after a full game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's going to be
So
interesting to see, but I think Talkett or Alvin or if you were the coach or me, if Demko told me he's ready to go on Friday morning, I would say let's go Demko.
yeah,
But
100%.
I think it's going to come down to really how he's feeling, how his body is. He knows it, and from what I hear and have seen from practices, he looks great. So I think he's ready to go. It's just going to come down to what feels right for him, and it's going to be great to have him back.
It will be. Now, I know you're not a huge football fan, but we do need to make a brief detour here to the CFL land, because the BC Lions, I almost called them the Vancouver Lions, the BC Lions made a huge trade
They
on, what
did.
day was that? The 26th, yesterday.
Yeah.
Vernon Adams is going to Calgary. In return, they're getting a 2025 second round pick, the 9th overall, a 2025 fourth round pick with the 29th overall, and a 2026 second round pick. Calgary is getting Vernon Adams Jr., a fourth round pick in 2025, and a third round pick in 2026.
Yeah. Vernon Adams was great this year. And they brought in Nathan Rourke. Just he was amazing when he was there. When he was with the BC Lions in the first run, he was a star. He then went to the NFL and didn't play. So I think when he came back this year, he has not had the reps in a game for a long time, and it showed. But I think when the Lions made that commitment to Nathan Rourke, that they believe in him and they're going to run with him. So I think they almost might have felt they owed it to Vernon Adams to move on, and give him an opportunity to be the starter in Calgary. Great player. Hopefully they don't regret the decision. But who knows? If Rourke can step up and be the Rourke that we've seen before, then it was the right trade. But Vernon Adams Jr. was, he had a fantastic year for the Lions, and he outplayed Rourke down the stretch and ultimately got the start in the playoffs. So
Which was the right call. Like, he, all throughout the year, I think he was the better quarterback. Obviously got injured, and that's why they brought in Rourke, and the fact that Rourke wanted to come back as quickly as he did from the NFL. But yeah, the most Vancouver thing that could happen would be for Vernon Adams just to burn them in the playoffs next year.
yeah,
So I'm looking forward to it though. I think Vernon Adams is an all-star quarterback and can hopefully turn around a really struggling Stampeders franchise, because they've been waiting for a quarterback like this for years.
yeah. You look at the CFL is a small league, and there's only a few high end quarterbacks. So you look back, it kind of reminds me of Dickinson Printers era, right?
Yep.
And they're just, there's only one ball. So I think that, they looked at that, and they look at the track record of Nathan Rourke, sorry, and they believe in him, and they believe that, I think, going into a season with a full training camp, and his mindset being solely on the Lions and preparing for the CFL and the CFL game, that they're banking that he's going to be the player that they know he can be, and then in turn they're going to get the assets that they did for Vernon Adams to help improve the team. So it's a tough decision, but I understand where they're coming from with it.
Oh, 100%. And I think the big thing that the BC Lions need to focus on now is getting protection for Rourke up front on the O-line. But lots of offseason to happen. I mean, we're 2 weeks removed from the Grey Cup. So I expect there to be lots of moving pieces. From the rumors that I'm seeing and hearing, there's going to be shakeups all over the league from almost every single team.
Yeah.
Which will just be a lot of fun. Now, normally I would say, like, this is everyone's favorite time of the podcast where we get to see the old man picks. And luckily, even though he's on vacation, he was able to bring us a video. So let us hit the music, and we'll see the old man here.
It's time for the old man predictions. How well did he do? Do-do-da, do-dee-do.
That's right, everyone. It's time for the old man predicts. How well did he do? Do-dee-da, do-dee-do. And let's hear from him right now.
Hey everybody, it's the old man coming to you live from somewhere in the ocean. I have no idea where we are. We are heading to Tortola. We'll be there tomorrow. But as Jake said, it's old man predicts times. But before I predict, I wanted to just talk about a little bit, not a whole lot, just a little bit about the week that was, because I know you've been sitting listening to Jake and Reid go on ad nauseum with stats and everything else, probably talking a lot about the Vernon Adams trade. At least probably Jake. I'm not sure if Reid did, but probably Jake. Telling you how horrible the trade it was, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it was that bad, to be honest. It's a CFL. You're not going to get a whole lot for trades. So, going to get picks. They wanted to make a move quick. Lots of QBs coming available over the next little bit. So you had to make your decision rather soon. And I think they got what they could for VA. Wish him well. I'm kind of glad he's coming to Calgary, just for the fact I think I might even get season tickets for the Stamps again this year, just to be able to watch him play, because he's that darn good. Excuse me. It's really hard to hold this camera. The arm gets really sore because it's arm day. Corona. I've got a bottle inside a ship instead of a ship inside a bottle. Get the joke, Jake. Anyways, old man predicts 3 games today. This week. Not today. This week. I am thinking it's going to be, guess what? Yeah, you know it, 2-1. We're going to win 2. We're going to lose 1. Thinking probably lose Buffalo. That's a game I think we'll lose. Win the other 2. We ran into a couple Canuck fans on the boat here. Ship. Sorry. I keep calling it a boat and they get mad at me. It's a ship. So we're going to try to get the Canuck game on the TV tonight. See what we can do. Anyway, till next week, folks. That is the old man predicts in this beautiful, I know it's cloudy, but it's still beautiful, isn't it? Wish you could all be here. Maybe we should, hey, Jake, pay attention. Maybe we should do a trip. Do a fan trip on a cruise. Okay, talk to everybody soon.
That was the old man predicts from somewhere in the middle of the ocean. And I'm not going to lie, I skimmed through that earlier today. I did not get to the end of the video where he decided that we should do a fan cruise. I'm all for it. I'm leaving that in the realm of the old man. He's the one who goes on cruises all the time. I'm going to toss the ball right back to you, old man. You start planning it and we will get it done. Reid, thank you so much for hanging out for the last hour plus. Talking Canucks, BC Lions, everything. It's always a blast to talk with you and catch up. We don't see each other nearly enough.
Yeah,
you.
it was great to be here and great to get to talk with you. Absolutely, we need to see each other soon.
Yes. And for all of you, thank you so much for hanging out and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. Leave a comment telling us what your predictions are for this week, because the old man predicts that we're going to go 2-1. If you're
I like
listening
it.
on any of the podcast platforms, make sure you leave a review. Let us know that you like it. Share it with a friend, because that's the best way for us to grow. Follow us on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, at HSP Pod. That's HSP Pod on X and Instagram. Blue Sky is HS Pod, because I realized originally that HSP Pod means Hughes Sports Podcast Pod, and that makes no sense. So I fixed it on some of them, but not all of them. Any last words from you, Super Fan Reid?
Just great to be on with you again, and hopefully we have a lot more to cheer about further into the season here.
Hopefully we can have you on, like, as a you and the old man, to start talking like pre Canucks playoff run. We'll have
That'd
you
be
on,
great.
see how we're doing. That is the show for this week. Have yourselves a wonderful week. We'll see you here next week. Mwah, and